Okay, so yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for doing yoga. I understand there's a whole class here too, so thank everyone for taking the time to do some yoga, some practice, some self-study today too. My name is Joy Dempsey, and I'll be leading you through. And in front of me is Leah Dempsey, so she's my daughter, and she will be leading the poses. Let's start with a comfortable seat. So you're sitting, Leah's sitting cross-legged, but you can have your feet a little bit more out in front of you if that makes your spine a little bit taller. And close your eyes. Just the act of closing your eyes makes you 80% more aware of what's going on the inside. And that's what we're going to notice here to draw mindfulness into today's practice. So you're noticing that you're inhaling and you're noticing you're exhaling. Noticing you're inhaling and you're noticing you're exhaling. Take a little mind's eye noticing around your body. So noticing for areas in the body that might have sensitivities. Maybe there's an injury, maybe it's a sudden injury, it's a recent injury, or maybe it's a chronic place in your body that you're kind of cautious around. Maybe it's knees, maybe it's lower back, maybe it's shoulders. So if you have any of those areas in your body, this would be a great time to bring those to mind. And then with those places in mind, I encourage you to highlight those places. Highlight them with a mental highlighter so you know as you move through the class, you can come back to those places when you get to new poses just to make sure those places are okay. If you don't have any places you're highlighting today, think about that with a bit of gratitude, because with our bodies, they tend to ebb and flow with sensitivities. And so this might be a time where you have a little bit less noticing body-wise and maybe a little bit more noticing mental-wise. Going to start to move the body. Now put your hands on your knees and start to make big circles with the spine all the way around. So you're going to come a little bit forward, a little bit sideways, other side, straighten the arms, lean back a little bit. And as you're moving around, you're kind of thinking about separating at the waist, the hips from the torso, a little bit of space, a little bit of movement. This is our first real movement, so there's no wrong movement. Actually, there's no wrong movement throughout any of the class. So this is exercise in exploring movement and our body. And then coming back to center, bring the right arm up overhead. And put the left hand on the floor next to you and come over towards the left with the right hand. So we're going to start to get a stretch in the side of the body. You can even press the hand into the floor to shine the right side body up and towards the upper corner of the room. And come around to the other side, that hand down, the other hand up. I'm starting to get to notice the body as it feels, stretch and stretch sensations. Nothing wrong with stretch sensations in the body. That's what we're looking for in the body. So sometimes when we feel them, we think we're doing something wrong or our body isn't quite right. That is not true. Coming back to center, put the right hand in front of you, the left hand behind you. Press on the floor, lengthen the spine, and twist the shoulders around, following around with the nose. So we're getting a little twist of the body. You can use your hands on the floor to help bring those shoulders around. And then coming back through center, switch it up. Left hand in front, right hand behind. Press into the floor, tall spine, twist around, following with the nose. Nice. And then bring both hands in front of you. Walk both hands forward on your mat. So you're coming into a forward fold. You have a little extra added here. So you're going to press your hands into the floor to really shine your back body towards the back of the room. And then walk the hands further forward. Let yourself round forward. Take a couple breaths here in this forward fold. Connect with your mind. Kindness is the theme of today. So right here, right now, I'd like you to imagine that in your mind right now is a not so kind bin. I'd like to say trash can, but it's something like that, a not so kind bin. And so as you're noticing thoughts in your mind as you move through class, if you consider that thought not so kind, especially to yourself, like you wouldn't say that to your friend kind of thought, put it in the not so kind bin. Don't beat yourself up for having those thoughts. We're all going to have those thoughts for the practices, but we're just kind of noticing how our mind can sometimes be not so kind to ourselves. Walk your hands back behind you. Hands behind you. Press into the floor. Shine your heart forward and up. Nice. Coming back to center. Coming around onto your hands and knees. And so another idea that might go into that not so kind bin is Leah is in front of us. Leah is young and someone who's done yoga all her life. So her versions of the pose might look like yours, but my guess is they probably won't look exactly like yours. So just know that your body has its own room for movement. And here, explore that movement as you round and arch the spine through a cat and cow move, we call it. So arching and rounding. And as you're arching and rounding, start to connect with the breath as it comes and it goes. This idea is going to be a big part, especially of the first part of today's class. We're going to inhale into one place and exhale into the other place. So noticing as you're exhaling, take your whole exhale to round the back, and as you inhale, your whole breath to arch the back. So quicker isn't better in yoga, slower is better in yoga. So take your time, slow and steady. And remembering that sensations in the body are the way the body communicates with us. So if you're feeling sensations in the body and your mind has a negative thought, then you're going to take that thought and you're going to put it in the not so kind bin. Don't worry, and at the end of class, we're going to empty that bin. Okay, the spine is going to come back to center. Tuck the toes under, lift the hips, and come into a move we call downward facing dog. This is a pretty common move if you've done yoga before. And just take a little pedal of the heels to feel the back side of the body. So this might be one of those poses where you're like, oh, I feel the backs of my legs, I feel my bum, I feel my lower back. So just noticing those, trying to keep this as a noticing adventure, not a negative or positive adventure. Trying to keep those extra not kind words out of the mind, and appreciation, a little gratitude in there too helps go a long way with kindness. Nice. And stepping the right foot forward to come into a lunge. And that might step through the center as Leah did, or it might step out to the side. And if it steps out to the side, then you can bring the hand into the center to balance that. Nice. Hand's going to come up onto the front knee. And hands are going to come up overhead. So now we're in standing lunge, crescent lunge. This is a little bit more balancing. So you might have to notice that there's a spot in front of you that you're looking at. Take this to a bit of a back bend, even to really shine the fingers back a bit. Notice when we're in lunge, and for most hip structure, lunge has that front thigh, not parallel to the knee, but above parallel to the knee for strength in the knee. Hands come back down to the sides. Slide that front foot back and back into downward facing dog. Bring the knees down and bring the knees apart. Knees apart, toes together, hips sit back over the heels, come into child's pose. I like to stick this pose sometimes somewhere towards the beginning of class, just so you know that this is a yoga pose, and this is a nice place to come into. I'll be talking about poses, I'll be leading you through various poses, but none of the poses I'm talking about are any more important than this pose. So if you want to come back to here, if you need a little bit more space, mental space or physical space, or just want to notice and watch your breath and watch your thoughts, this would be a great place to come back to. You can even notice here that you can breathe into your lower back. Also important to keep this in perspective when we talk about yoga. Yoga is a system ultimately designed for the whole world, for health and happiness for the whole world. And so what we do on our mat is fostering ourselves, and which that the hope is then that spreads out into the world through you. So we brought it right down today when I've asked you to put the not so kind bin in your mind, to put those extra negative thoughts into, because we're working on our own kindness, because Lord knows our world right now could use just a little extra kindness, whatever we can do in ourselves to then spread out into the world. That is what yoga asks of us. So all of these extra moves, these poses are just on top of that, but we still want to keep that mental idea going throughout the class as best you can. Noticing thoughts, kind thoughts. Breath comes and goes. Hands press into the ground, tuck the toes under, lift the hips up and come into downward facing dog again. We did the right side. Let's do the left side. Left foot steps forward into a lunge. So it might come straight between your hands, or it might open out to the side and be placed down to the outside of the left hand. Just it's a little bit more open movement for the hip, a little bit easier movement for the hip. If your foot didn't come all the way forward, try going out to the side. Hands come up on the front knee. Hands come up overhead. And then we're going to take a little bit of a back bend. So fingertips point back a bit. This is a strong play, so you want to find that spot you're looking at. Nice. Perfect. Okay, the hands come back down towards the ground. This time, step the back foot forward. So you're standing at the top of your mat in the standing forward fold. And let's take this opportunity for an upside down hug. Reach your hands around the backs of your legs and draw your nose in towards your knees and towards your calves. As you're folding forward, the knees want to bend a bit, and that's fine. Just imagine there's a string attached to your tailbone that's being lifted towards the ceiling. So we're getting a nice deep stretch. In yoga, we call it through the west side of the body or the back side of the body. You might notice it in the lower back, bum cheeks, down through the hamstrings, maybe even back through the backs of the calves for some of you. And then from here, I'm going to move into a series of flow movements, those dynamic movements like we did before, moving back and forth with the breath. This first one starts in chair position. I'm smiling because it's not the easiest position, but see what you can do. Sit the hips down, swoop the arms up, and come into chair pose. Okay, so how little your chair is, that depends. If you have the legs a little straighter, this is a little bit easier of a move. So arms are going to move. So the torso and legs are going to stay where they are. The arms are going to move. The hands are going to come down to the sides of the body. And then they're going to come back up as you inhale. And they're going to exhale down to the sides of the body. And they're going to inhale up. Exhaling down to the sides. Inhaling back up. Exhaling down to the sides. Inhaling back up. Good work, good work. Stand up. Bring your hands to prayer position in front of you. We call it a flow. It's just a series of dynamic movements like that, followed with sprinkled with long holds of movement. So here we go. With the hands in prayer position, now we're going to move into another dynamic move twist. Bring the right hand forward and the left hand back. Standing twist, reach. Exhale, the hands come back to prayer. Inhale, opening up to the other side, reach it out. Exhale, the hands back to prayer. See if you can time this. So you're opening up, breathing, maybe even take like a pause at the end of the inhale. Then exhale, hands come back to center. When the fingertips meet, pause. Inhale, reaching out. Exhale, back. I'm going to let you keep going with this move a couple more times at your own breath pace. So find a slow moving place that takes you from here to there, that uses a full deep breath in and out. I guess if I had a picture of all of your screens, I would be able to see that you're all not moving at the same pace, which is awesome because you are all individual and unique in your own way. Stretching, And then hands come back to prayer. Hands come onto your hips. Bring your right leg out in front of you. And there's two ways to do this. One would have the knee bent. And so you've got a knee bent. Or the other way, if you want to make it a little bit stronger, is to have the leg straight out in front of you, shining the sole of your foot towards the side of the room. So we've got a little bit of a hold here. So we're not moving back and forth with the breath on this particular pose, but we're holding, but noticing that the breath comes and goes in this place. Remember when I said at the beginning that we had a kind, not so kind bin in your mind, and you're going to put negative thoughts into there, especially about yourself right now. If you're having those, place that in your bin. Okay, from here, we're going to go into a warrior one. So you're going to take that right leg back and put it onto the floor behind you in a place where the heel can come down and that front knee has a bend in it. Arms are going to come up overhead. This next move is a big swooping move. So you're going to point your fingers back towards the back corner of the room. So where the ceiling meets the wall kind of area. And now you're going to exhale, fold forward, bring your chest all the way down towards the front thigh, arms swoop up and back. If you've been with me, we've done this a couple times over the series. Inhale, coming back up and back, fingertips point towards the upper corner of the room. Exhale, folding forward, hands come down, up and back. Inhale the arms up overhead so you get the breath movement with the inhale. Try to time it. Exhale, folding forward, arms come up and back. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale the arms up. This time as we go forward, we're going to go right into airplane pose. Let's see what happens. Arms are going to come out to the sides as you fold forward. Back leg lifts off the ground. And you're balancing on one leg. Maybe for times if the back foot has to come down, bring it down to get reset and then see if it can lift up again. And not an easy place to stay. See what you can do. Shaking is okay. Shaking is okay for sure. Nice. The leg you're standing on, bend that to place the foot back down behind you and bring the hands down on either side of the front foot. So that is a big ask. Those hands might not come anywhere near the floor, and that's okay too. We're trying to find a pyramid pose here. So both legs are relatively straight and the hands are down towards the floor. Both toes pointed relatively forward. This sets us up for our next dynamic move. So the body's going to stay where it is, just the arms move. The arms are going to reach up and back towards the upper corner of the room, and then exhale the hands back down towards the foot. The torso stays as it is, just the arms. Inhale the arms up and back. Exhale the fingertips down. Inhale the arms up and back. Exhale the fingertips down. Inhale the arms up and back. Exhale down. Inhale up and back. Exhale down. Sliding the front foot back and coming into downward facing dog. So if this sort of dynamic move is new to you, this comes from a lineage of yoga called Vini Yoga from Desikachar, and so it's not very much represented very widely. We've done bits and pieces of it in classes of this series, but this class has a little bit more of this type of flow. So in downward facing dog, now we're going to use the breath to pedal the heel. So exhale the right heel closer to the ground. Inhale, lift the heel up. Exhale, left heel closer to the ground. Inhale, lift it up. So take your whole breath back and forth, one heel. Inhale, lift it up. Exhale, the other heel. Lift it up. And go so slowly, so mindfully that you feel the stretch sensations run through the back of the leg. Inhale, lift it up. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Next time you inhale, lift the right leg up behind you. And then as you exhale, step it forward, and we're coming into our lunge once again. It might come through straight through center. It might come out to the outside of that right hand. Hands come up onto the front knee and then overhead. Get your balance, get yourself set. It might take a few little adjustments to get this place. And now we're going to do another dynamic movement from this lunge pose, bending the back knee. Bend the back knee down to hover and straighten 5. Hover and straighten 4. Hover and straighten 3. Hover and straighten 2. Hover and straighten. Good work, good work. Okay, this next one, the hands are going to swoop down on either side of the front foot. The back foot's going to lift off the ground and up into the air. This pose is called standing splits. So the hands might be touching the floor, but maybe they get a little bit lighter into the floor. Maybe the hands hover over the floor. Potentially you could hold on to the ankle of the leg you're standing on. That's a big potentially. See what happens. Don't beat yourself up. Keep breathing. Nice. Okay, bring that foot back down. So you're standing forward fold at the top of your mat, both feet together, both hands down. Ah, okay. We just made it through the right side of that flow. So give yourself a big upside down hug. Wrap your hands around the backs of the legs. Hug yourself in. Just take a moment here to reflect. We're talking about kindness today. So just sort of noticing the tones of the thoughts that are in your mind when you're working with our bodies. We have lots of images out there of what yoga should be, what our bodies should be, constantly coming at us. It's really hard for our minds to differentiate points of reference. So when we're seeing those reference points, it's hard for us to see, well, that's not my journey. That's not my body. And we often tend to compare without even noticing that we're comparing, which is really hard for us to be kind to ourselves when we're constantly getting messages that are other than ourselves. So this is another reflection into that point. Let yourself move as you will, if you can. See if you can use a more of an idea of exploring the movement than criticizing the movement. Here we go for the left side of this flow. We started with chair pose, bend the knees, swoop the arms, coming into chair pose. You know, it is optional, but you could lift the corners of your mouth to make this pose a little bit more bearable. We're going to move with the breath with the arms. So exhale the hands down to the sides. And then inhale, the arms come back up. So you're keeping that bend of the knees, hands down, torso stays what it is. Exhale, the arms down to the sides. Inhale, the arms back up. Exhale, the hands down to the sides. Inhale, the arms come back up. Exhale, hands down to the sides. Inhale, the arms come back up. Exhale, the hands down to the sides. Inhale, the arms come back up. Hands come to prayer position. Stand up. Nice. Right hand comes forward, left hand goes back, standing twist. We did all these before. Now on the other side, hands come back to prayer. Inhale, reach out. See if you can even be more mindful to coordinate the breath. Exactly. As the fingertips touch, and then as the fingertips reach as far apart as they can be, you're at the edges of the breath. See if you can even pause at the breath, maybe even noticing there's a heartbeat happening as you're pausing at the end of the breath. That's really deep noticing. See what you can do as you travel back and forth. Nice. The next time your hands come to prayer position, put your hands on your hips. Left leg kicks out in front of you. So that might be with the knee bent, or that might be with the leg straight and the sole of the foot shining towards the side wall. This is a strong, we think that this place would be easy. We walk all the time. It kind of looks like this, but as you're here, you might notice that it's definitely not so easy to balance. And the strength that it requires to keep that leg lifting is building tension and a bit of stress in the body. So we're using this time as we're building the stress to use the breath that comes and goes. The breath is coming and going, coming and going. That leg comes back and through and place it down behind you. This is into warrior one. So that back heel's going to connect with the ground. The front knee's going to bend and the arms are going to come up overhead. This is, I like this swooping part the best of this flow. So the fingertips are going to start up towards, take that big swooping move. Exhale, the chest down towards the thigh, arms come up and back. Exhale. Inhale, the arms up. Take this so it's a free movement. So your breath takes you from here to there. Noticing there is that little pause. Yogis believe there are 4 parts of the breath. So there's a coming and a going, but then there's that little space at the end of the coming, at the end of the going. The next time you come forward, lift the back leg off the ground and come into airplane pose. Arms out to the side for a little extra balance. Again, so we're generally holding this pose-ish, but we're not holding the breath. So the breath is still coming and going. The body might be shaking, it's working. We're trying to find new places in the body to get working. So if it's shaking, don't let the mind go to the negative place. But if it did, stick that thought in your box and see if you can notice that, oh yeah, my body does shake when I do this. The corners of the mouth could still lift potentially. Here we go. Back heel going to connect down with the ground. Hands come down on either side of the front foot. This is pyramid pose. And again, they don't have to touch the floor. They're just going down towards the floor in this place. Depending on lots of features in your body, how close your fingers get to the ground is not really something that we're that worried about. Everybody's getting the same stretch. Both legs relatively straight, both toes pointing relatively forward. Torso stays here, just the arms move. Inhale, the hands up and back. Exhale, fingertips down towards the ground. Inhale, the arms up and back. Exhale, fingertips down towards the ground. Inhale, the arms up and back, down towards the ground. Inhale, the arms up and back. Exhale, the hands down towards the ground. Nice. And then slide the front foot back, and this is going to take us into downward facing dog. Getting set up with downward facing dog. Feet are a bit apart from one another, maybe about hip width apart. Any sensitivities in the wrists, walk the feet back a little bit more so you have a little bit wider of a triangle. You can also put the weight into the outside of the hands if you have wrist sensitivity instead of the inside, which takes a little extra of that strain off of the wrists. So here we go. Pedal one heel, exhale. Inhale, lift it. Exhale, the other heel comes down. Inhale, lift it. Exhale, other heel. 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 Inhale, lift it. Exhale, let's try both heels down at the same time. Left leg lifts up behind you. And step that foot forward to come into a lunge. So it might come through the center, but it also might come to the outside of the hand. Hands come onto the front knee. Hands come overhead. This little bit of knee strength work here. So you're bending that back knee down to hover and straighten. Hover and straighten. Shaking might happen. That's okay. Hover and straighten. 5. Hover and straighten. 4, hover and straighten. 3, hover and straighten. 2, hover and straighten. Nice. Swoop the hands down on either side of that front foot. Back leg lifts off of the ground and up towards the ceiling. Where the leg goes doesn't matter. More that you're balancing on one foot and folding forward. Fingertips might stay on the floor, or they might hover over the floor. They might hover over the floor for a moment, or maybe you have one hand grabbing the ankle, maybe two. That's pretty tricky. You can lift the right hip a little bit higher than the left hip to really get that leg up. You can imagine there's a string attached to your toes, lifting that foot up towards the ceiling for 3, 2, 1. Nice. Place that foot back down onto the ground. Wrap your hands around the backs of the legs. Give yourself that nice upside down hug in. Then placing the hands onto the ground, walking the feet back a bit. Come down onto your knees apart, toes together, hips back over the heels. We're here before that flow. Now we're back into this place of child's pose, noticing. Today's class is going to have two different feels. So this first part of class, which we've just done, check, is the stronger part of class. So if you found that that part was kind of strong, it was. There were some challenging moves that probably made you shake. And then we've got the second part of class, which is going to feel a little bit more, if you've done yin yoga, a little bit more like yin yoga. We're going to have longer stretches, longer holds of poses, more passive poses, more passive actions with the body to get a deep stretch into the center of the tissues. And so this is the first of those poses. We're bringing compression into the knees and the ankles and the hip creases. And so if that doesn't work for your knees, ankles, or hip creases, you can have the hips up a little bit higher. We're here for several more breaths. So noticing the breath. Kindness is an interesting thought, and we tend to have the thought that if we're kind, we're sort of taking away from us to do something for someone else. But there's some really cool research from a UBC psychology professor named Elizabeth Dunn. And she did this great study where she had people give out money, $5 in some cases, $20 in some cases, and then measured the people's happiness, not just who received the money, but the people giving the money. And she found that both people benefited from being kind. So it doesn't work how our instincts say that somehow we're taking away from us when we're kind from others. We're also improving our well-being, our happiness when we are being kind to others. I'm not suggesting that you go out and hand away all your money, but just sort of noticing, keep that in mind when you're being kind, that you are also helping, you're also improving your own well-being. So it's not just other people out there away from you, but it's you too. That's another little inspiration for being kind. Moving into the deep stretches now, we're going to move into low lunge, but we'll get some blood flow back into these legs now. So press the hands into the ground. Tuck the toes under, lift the hips up, come into a downward facing dog as a counter pose. And that's just to let the blood flow come back in. So it might feel nice to pedal the heels a little bit just to bring that blood flow back into the legs. Taking this into a low lunge, step the right foot forward to come into a lunge. And this is a low lunge, so that back knee is going to come down onto the ground. And both hands are going to come to the inside of that right foot. This stretch is a stretch for the front of that left leg. So draw the hips forward until you feel the stretch in the front of that back leg. For some of you, your hands will be on the ground. Some of you might move towards elbows on the ground, or if you have a pillow close by, you might have your elbows on a pillow. So you have sort of an in-between place. So what we're thinking about in these types of moves, the other types of moves were dynamic moves, and that was helping build strength in the body. So this part of class, bringing flexibility, mobility in the body the best way we know how, which is a little bit longer holds. It takes about 40 seconds for the tissues to have the type of connection with the mind to give the sort of release ideas that we're looking for. So 40 seconds seems like a really long time in low lunge. So a great way to pass that time is to notice the breath. You could notice that you wish you had other legs with longer hip flexors, but that's probably not as useful as thinking about the inhale and the exhale. The inhale and the exhale, 4. The inhale and the exhale, 3. The inhale and the exhale, 2. The inhale and the exhale. Been here a while, so slowly, slowly walk the hands up, draw the hips back. You might want to make a counter move here. And then we're going to take this, you can keep that right foot forward, Leah. We're going to take this right into pigeon pose. So we're going to slide the right knee behind the right wrist. And the left leg is going to slide back. And so you're here, we're moving into a band called the IT band, the band that runs from the outside of the hip into the outside of the knee. So for some knee structures, this positioning of the leg moves into the knee. So if this isn't feeling okay for your knee, slide over onto the outside of your right hip. That is one idea. Another idea would be to square the hip. So you would lift the right hip away from the floor, just noticing the knee in that case. And if it doesn't feel okay, slide back over onto the hip. It doesn't really matter. They're both of those positions bring you a stretch line into the band that we're looking at getting into. You can fold forward. You can come towards your elbows, let your head hang down as Leah is. Close your eyes. We have some time here. Where this working on this band's connection into the outside of the hip. So you can even imagine or notice, you probably notice the sensation in the side of the hip. Try to keep your mind there and maybe even do an exercise where you're noticing that the breath is coming and going, and maybe even imagine it coming and going into the side of the hip. So the side of the hip expands as you inhale and releases as you exhale. A bit more space and time to be. There'll be moments when I'm speaking a little bit less. You can take those moments to have the mind go on the journey inside. Just walk the hands back up. I hope that right leg's connected. Let's see, slide it back onto your hands and knees, and then up into a downward facing dog, perhaps to pedal out those legs. Nice deep stretches here today. So now we've got the other side. We've got the left foot coming forward for low lunge on the left side. Back knee comes down onto the ground. If that doesn't feel good on your kneecap, you can slide a pillow or your comfy blanket on underneath that knee for extra support. Nothing wrong with that. And then coming down as to you feel a stretch in the front of that back leg, and then maybe even down towards your forearms potentially. So in this way that we're working with the body now, the theory behind this is we're trying to come into a place where we're feeling approximately 70% sensation, and we're trying to sit in that place. And so if you're here and already at the beginning, you're gritting your teeth and can't hardly breathe, I encourage you to lift the hips up a little bit so you can get a little bit closer to that 70%. We're trying to do something with the body, which is bring it into a place of a stretch sensation, but not have too many muscles around that area contract. The natural reaction of the body when it moves and gets into kind of a feeling of a dangerous sort of place is the muscles to contract to support it. And so if we can get into the place before the muscles contract, we can get a little bit more access to the center of the muscle tissues. And that is going to give us what we would consider kind of a deeper stretch or deeper access to those tissues. So finally, it's sometimes our mind says we have to do 110% to do better at all times, but I'm encouraging you today, and it's shown with our body that 70%, good enough, good enough. Be kind. Coming up enough. So now we're going to take this into pigeon pose, sliding the left knee behind the left wrist and the right foot comes out to the side. So the angle of that calf can change. You can lean over onto the outside of the left hip, especially if you have knee sensitivities. in this pose. Some hips allow for this movement and some hips do not. So if you're, and that movement in the hip reflects in the knee. So if you're feeling it in your knee, then stay over onto the outside of the hip, squaring if you're looking for that sensation. In the outside of the hip, both of those places should bring sensations in the outside of the hip. And try to keep your mind's eye there. The breath comes and goes. There's a saying that I've heard in the Buddhist circles. I've been meditating and doing these things for about 30 years. And I originally heard it in the Buddhist circles, and I heard it as attributed to Buddha, but I've seen it attributed to other people like Rumi. And so I'm really not sure the source of these, but I know it's an idea that is held in the Buddhist culture. And it goes like, says, before you speak, let your words pass through three gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? You can get into a lot on each of those, but I can all really imagine that if these sorts of intentional words were spoken more often, much nicer of a world we would live in. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Walking the hands back up and slide that foot back all the way back into downward facing dog. You can pedal out those heels, one heel, then the other heel. And then coming forward into plank pose, you can put your knees down onto the ground and then slowly lower yourself all the way down onto your belly. From here, we're going to be moving into Sphinx pose. So now you're going to slide your elbows underneath your shoulders. I like to hold the head here, so you can bend at the elbows to make a cup with your hands to hold your head here. You can place them under your chin to hold your head. The legs are back behind you, and they're relaxed, so the heels might draw in or out. This position, we're moving into the lower back. So bring the lower back into focus, into the mind's eye focus, and sort of noticing how we can relax here. The natural instinct of the body when you back bend is to engage, which is awesome, especially in things like we were doing in the first part of class. We were trying to build that strength around the lower back with those big swooping motions. Now we're trying to do something a little bit different. Often our lower back is engaged a lot, and especially when we're sitting in chairs, it's engaged a lot. And so we're now trying to come into a place where it's not so engaged, and we can have a little bit of relaxation through that lower part of the back. So see what you can do. Imagining a ball about the size of a softball in the lower back. Breath after breath, you can imagine that ball getting smaller and smaller in your mind as the edges of the ball relax and you draw inward and inward. You can think of the center of the ball being just in the center of the body above the belly button. Breath is coming, breath is going. Moving deeper and deeper into the center with relaxation. Releasing the elbows out to the side and slowly, slowly coming down to make a pillow with the backs of your hands, resting your forehead on the backs of your hands. Taking this to half frog pose by sliding the right knee out to the side, aligning the right knee with the hip-ish. That'll bring the right inner thigh away from the ground. So you're just sort of noticing that space between the inner thigh and the floor. And the right leg comes down and the left leg comes out instead. If you notice that side and now noticing this side and noticing differences between the two sides, you're right. Your right side is not the same as your left side. Our hips, we tend to think of our hips as symmetrical things, but they are not. They are not structurally, usually, and they're not soft tissue wise either, because we tend to stand on one foot more than the other. So there's lots of reasons why they would be not equal, but ideally, as you work with yoga, you're moving at least the soft tissues towards a bit more of a balance, so we can keep health in the hips, which leads to health in the lower back, that sort of thing. Okay, and then you're going to send that leg long, and then without even sitting up, let's go that way. Roll over onto your back. And once you get onto your back, bring your knees into your chest, hug them in. Those of you who have been in my classes before, you know that I've changed the name of this pose to the Yay Me pose. So take this opportunity, hug those knees in, and think of this pose not just physically counteracting, but mentally counteracting. So as you move through the class, if you put thoughts in that not so kind bin, this would be the pose that counteracts those thoughts. Give yourself a little moment to be grateful for the experience that your body can do this sort of thing, that we can do this together online, and that your body can move in these ways and around these ways. And that is something to be grateful for. Arms out to the sides in a T position. One last twist here. Bring both knees over towards the right and a knee down twist for final relaxation. And so the knees are down over to the side, though there's lots of variations on this particular pose. If you want to add more twisty sort of feeling into the body, then you can straighten the leg or the top leg out to the side. Again, we're still in that sort of yinish phase where we're looking at some sensation, not too much. You should be able to notice the breath coming from and going from the body and the twisting, wrapping sensations that causes in the center of the body. And then coming back through center, knees come back through center and all the way over to the other side. Sometimes it's nice to scooch up onto the opposite hip a bit to give that rotation, but not totally necessary. Just sort of finding that place where you're feeling the wrapping sensation. And again, the knees can be bent or the legs can be straight out to the side, which would be a jackknife twist, or the top leg could be straight. A little less concerned about where the actual knees and feet are, and that the feeling that you're getting through the center of the body is a twisting sort of feeling. Knees come back to center. One last time, hugging those knees in, a great release for the lower back. Yay me. Give yourself a couple little props too, doesn't hurt. And then sending the legs long on the floor. And we're going to take this into our final relaxation place. So if you have a blankie around, feel free to add the blankie on top of you. We're trying to find a place where we're really relaxed, or if you like your socks on, put your socks on. Place where you're really relaxed. Lying on your back is one way, but for some people's lower back, their lower back feels a little grippy in this position. If that's you, you can lie on your side. You can go back into that twist motion we were just in, or you can lie on your belly. Try to find a place where you can really settle, really relax. Eyes closed. And notice your feet and calves are relaxed. Notice your thighs and your hips relaxed. Notice your belly and lower back relaxed. Notice your rib cage relaxed, so relaxed that the breath comes and goes with ease. Right arm relaxes. Left arm relaxes. Jaw relaxes. Roof of the mouth relaxes. Eyes, face, relax. You can use your mind's eye just to scan through, confirming from the top of the head all the way down through the body, the tips of the toes are relaxed. In this relaxation, I'm going to talk you through what we call a loving kindness meditation. This definitely comes from the Buddhist tradition. So there's not much you have to do other than get images in your mind. And so the first image I want you to bring to mind, which might be one of the hardest, is yourself. The meditation goes like this. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful and at ease. And then bring to mind someone you care about a lot, a significant person in your life. There might be many, but for today, bring the image of one person to mind. Do the other ones later. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful and at ease. Now bring to mind an image of someone neutral to you. So maybe you saw the image of this person as you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, or maybe someone you saw on the street, or maybe they live in your apartment, but you don't really know them, but you have an image of their face. Bring that to mind. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful and at ease. Now bring to mind someone who challenges you, maybe even frustrates you, you don't see eye to eye with. Bring an image of their face into your mind. Maybe several. You can pick one for today. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be peaceful and at ease. We're going to open this up a bit, open our circle in mind, and you might not even be able to have pictures because maybe you don't even know everyone on this call, but everyone in this call, this class right now, may we be happy, may we be healthy, may we be peaceful and at ease. Opening that up, let's move it out even bigger. Let's go BC wide, everyone in BC, and not just everyone as people, but let's involve all the critters too. May we be happy, may we be healthy, may we be peaceful and at ease. Go big or go home, right? Let's go everyone. Let's go everyone in the whole wide world. Like we're opening up to Canada and the States and all of Europe and Africa and Asia, everywhere, all around the world, all the people, all the critters. Let's many images of people and places you can bring to your mind, critters. May we all be happy. May we all be healthy. May we all be peaceful and at ease. Starting to notice that your breath is deepening a bit. Bring your mind's eye back into this space, into this time, into the room you're in. Start to wiggle your fingers and toes and give yourself a little bit of stretch. And eventually you'll hug your knees into your chest. Give them a nice big hug in. You can stay here or rock yourself up and around into a seated. Thank you for joining me today. And thank Leah for also joining us today and leading us through the physical part of the practice. Thank you for exploring kindness with me today. If you have any questions or wonderments, feel free to the chat box. Light in me sees a light in each of you. Thank you for your practice.